Welcome back to Live With, brought to you by Species Nutrition. I'm Dave Palumbo, and today's guest is a old friend of mine. He's an IFBB pro, bodybuilding broadcaster, an all-around good guy. I'd like to welcome Tom Terwilliger to the show, or back to the show, I should say. What's up, Tommy?
Hey, Dave, how are you, man? I'm doing terrific.
You're looking great, man. I think you're reverse aging now.
Well, you know, I got to keep up with my wife, man. 14 years younger than me. It's
I got the same deal.
It's a challenge. It's worse than training with John Defendez. I got to be honest with you.
My wife's 12 years younger than me, but I have 3 young kids, which is even crazier to keep up with. So.
You know, the challenge with that, though, is that you got to keep up with them, certainly, but they will age you fast, man.
Oh, the kids will, definitely, without a doubt. Now, we did a show the other day on a tribute to Bob Gruskin, you know, and I wanted to get you here separately because I know you had a very special relationship with him, and you know he's very instrumental in your entire bodybuilding career and influencing you a lot. I want to talk about that, and then I want to kind of take it into how you got into the broadcasting aspect, and then I want to go into the future of what you think where the sport should go. But taking a step back, I mean, you're a Long Island guy. You grew up, you know, you're a little older than me, but you grew up very close to where I grew up. You had the gym down the block from my house, even though when you had your gym, pretty much I was away in school. And, you know, you and your brother, twin brother, were pretty much fixtures in the Long Island bodybuilding scene. How did you get involved with bodybuilding initially?
Well, I'll tell you what, man, it really all stemmed from low self-esteem. And I hate to be cliche, you know, guy that built muscle, all muscle. But it was a challenge for me early on in school. In 4th grade, I was put into the special ed class because of dyslexia, hyperactivity. We call it, you know, attention deficit today.
Right.
All those things kind of really were working against me. And I became a bit of a rebel. Even at the early age of 10 years old, we had chopper bicycles and cut-off vests. I wanted to be an outlaw biker, you might say, really, with my goal. My goal, if a kid has a goal in 4th and 5th grade, that was it for me.
In 4th grade, you wanted to be an outlaw? That's hysterical.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And here's where it stemmed from in many respects. And again, listen, this relates to everyone because we all have these early experiences that sort of like create who we are, what we like, what our tastes are, what our beliefs are, if we believe in ourselves or we don't. And so for me, my grandparents used to live in Manhattan. Of course, we always lived on Long Island.
Right.
But my grandparents lived in Manhattan, and we would travel back and forth occasionally for holidays and things of this nature. And I remember it was one summer. It was a hot August, I think, and I was probably no more than 9 or 10 years old. And we were you know, on the streets of Manhattan, which back then, of course, this was the late 60s. You know, it was a different place than it is today. You know, and it was a little grittier, you might say.
Yeah.
But I do remember, like, we pulled up at a light, and I can't remember where we were in Manhattan. But all of a sudden, and it was a beautiful sunny day, August. And all of a sudden, I hear like this thunder. It's like a thunderstorm is just suddenly coming in. So I roll down my window, I look up and look around, and all of a sudden, I mean, we were just coming up to the light. We were engulfed by this, you know, band of outlaws, Hell's Angels. And a guy on the chopper next to me. I mean, it couldn't have been 6 inches from the car. Right? He's got the big ape hangers on. He's got the helmet with the horns sticking out, big scar on his face. You know, I mean, just the baddest looking mother lover you ever saw in your life. And he looks over at me and he winks and boom, boom, revs the engine and just takes off.
That was it. That's what sold you.
That was it. Between that and my older brother Raymond, who was a cop in New York, having his Harley Davidson and showing up once in a while, taking us for a ride. And those two things really formed. And for a disempowered, disenfranchised kid, you know, in 4th grade, 5th grade or so, this to me was the idea of power, brotherhood, camaraderie.
Right. And
it was everything I wanted to embrace. So literally, my twin brother and I, we started creating a gang. We had a little gang called the Savage Skulls, and we had cut off vests. We turned all our bicycles into choppers and stuff. So we began implanting this idea that this is who we are. And it's interesting because, you know, the outlaws refer to themselves as 1%ers. You know, they're 1% of 1% of society. And in many respects, as a special ed student, you know, are outcast. You're you know, I mean, you're teased. I didn't get much teasing because I fought back, but you're really an outcast. You're a rebel already. You're a 1%er, you might say. So the whole outlaw lifestyle, which I embraced much later on, I mean, fully, was something I felt completely at home with. It was like, this is where I belong. Yeah. I'm a 1%er, you know? So early on, that was happening. So that low self-esteem, you know, led to a lot of trouble, a lot of problems later on. But then the one thing that sort of like pulled me back a little bit and held those reins, you might say, from just going off the deep end early on as a teenager was, again, my older brother's influence. And he worked out. He always had a great physique. He had barbells and dumbbells in the house. And so I started working out. And it was, just under his guidance a little bit. It wasn't all that great. One thing led to another. Wound up at a gym called Iron Masters in Massapequa. I don't know if you remember Iron Masters.
Before my time, but I've heard of it. Yeah, I knew guys.
Yeah, it was right next to Massapequa High School, so we used to train over there. And then
didn't Dee Schneider buy that gym eventually and turn it into something else?
I think it turned into something else. Actually, an interesting story around that. I'll keep it brief. Dee Snider, remember Dee Snider from Twisted Sister?
Yeah, that's what I just said. That's why I thought that was his gym, wasn't it?
Yep, that's right. And Dee approached me later on, and he wanted to partner with me to go into that and buy it, and I would run it and manage it and stuff. But he had too many ideas about what I needed to do, and restricting my time and energy in like just locking myself to be there 12 hours a day. So I turned down that offer, and I think Dee ultimately did buy it and turned it into something else, a different gym. I don't think it made it too far. But at some point, for me, I discovered that there was another gym just down the road. Well, it was about 5 miles down the road in Amityville. Called Future Man Gym. You remember Future Man?
Yeah, didn't Dave Watson own that gym and Paul Lozardo?
That's right. Dave Watson owned it later on. There was a couple of owners prior to that.
Tony Pandolfo owned that, right?
Tony Pandolfo. Before him was a guy named Julie Levine.
Okay.
And Julie Levine owned R&J Health Studio where Lou Ferrigno trained in New York.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah, I didn't know he owned that gym too. Huh, interesting.
Yep. Yeah, he was the original owner of Future Man, and then Tony took it over.
Okay.
But man, when I walked into that gym, I gotta tell you, man, and you know what it's like. I mean, I walked in. It took some courage just to go in. I was a 14-year-old kid.
Right.
It was like I was standing outside that door for what must have been 2 hours, man, just kind of rubbing, not looking. It was all steamed. The windows were steamed up, and it was like a foreign. It was like walking out to another planet, man.
Right.
The first thing I noticed when I walked into that place was the pungent, like the odor. It was clean. It was always clean, but there was like this pungent thing that hit you in the face. It was like a combination between sweat, vomit, and Bengay. Everybody used Bengay, man. It was just like, whoa. It was like, holy crap, what happened?
You knew you were home when you smelled that, yeah.
I knew it. So somehow or other that still resonates with me today, Yeah. I mean, it's all that is Blue Emu. You don't need to smell, but I'll still use Bengay just for that, man. Takes me back. So and then the next thing I noticed was all the equipment. I had no clue what the half the stuff was.
Right.
And then over in the corner, I heard a ruckus going on. And there was actually, I didn't know him at the time, Bob Gruskin. He was photographing a bodybuilder.
Oh, wow.
And the guy he was doing about 500 pounds on the squat rack, just loaded it back on, comes off, ripped up tank top, and the guy looked like back in those old school days. You remember the attire? Just like, the shottier you looked, the better.
Who was it? Do you know who it was? You remember that?
Yeah, it was Steve Mahalik.
Oh, shit. Okay.
And my sort of 14-year-old, I was just like dumbfounded. I could not believe what I was seeing. At first, I couldn't even fathom that a human being could look like this. and here's the interesting thing, and I want to take it to, mindset, because I love to talk a lot about mindset. It's what I teach. It's what I work on. It's what I utilize the most with working with athletes and entrepreneurs. The mindset I had at that time, as a 14-year-old kid, as kids, we have this open mindset. We're open and receptive.
Right.
Almost anything is possible. It may seem impossible, but it's like we're open and receptive to it.
Yeah.
And so that question I asked myself, how is that possible to look like that? That was the question that really was the first implantation that this might be possible. Because if you can ask how, you can find out how. If someone else has done it, of course, you could do it as well. Had I walked into that gym 30, 40 years later, or even 20 years later, I may have had so many preconceived ideas about what is possible, what isn't possible, physically or mentally, emotionally, that I wouldn't even have given myself a chance to explore the possibility.
Sure.
But at that time, the question was how. Dumbfounded as all hell. But literally, I took every penny I had. The next day, I went back there on my bicycle, my little Schwinn chopper, signed up. I think it was, I don't know what it was, $20 a month or something like that. I got my first month. I don't know how I'm going to get my second.
Yeah.
But I got there. I had to be there. And so that was my first taste. And of course, Bob Gruskin was there. He didn't know who I was. I didn't know who he was. But that was my first that was the first time I dipped my toe into the bodybuilding.
It's interesting, Tommy, that Bob was there. It was almost like a foreshadowing, right? I mean, for you.
Yes.
Because, I mean, who the hell would ever thought that guy you saw would be your mentor later, in bodybuilding,
You know what? It's so interesting because that's kind of how it works. We don't know. We can't. This is why it's so important to be open and receptive, to be kind, to be generous, to be receptive to anyone and everyone, because you never know. When you
were you receptive then? I mean, or were you like, because you were kind of like an outlawish. I mean, were you still open to new experiences, or were you kind of like, hey, I'm a badass?
For this experience, I certainly was. Because again, I keep in mind that I was looking for this thing that would empower me.
Gotcha.
I still felt disenfranchised, and I felt like I was an outsider, and I was still wearing these cutoffs and motorcycle belts and stuff like that. I got my first Harley Davidson, my second year in high school, my first real chopper.
Oh wow! So you were one of the cool kids in school then.
I was I was one of the cool kids that no one wanted to get near.
Yeah, exactly.
If you saw my brother, literally, I've had people on Facebook say that, I remember you and your brother. I remember you guys, if you were walking down the street, we would walk on the other side of the street.
And you probably loved that. You loved that right back then. I'm sure it was power.
I did. I kind of love that thing, but it was, so that's who I was. So who knows? I mean, I was open and receptive to anything being possible. I didn't know Bob Gruskin at the time, but again, maybe it was a foreshadowing, like you said. Yeah. You never know. And one of the things that we've talked about, and I think John and some of the guys you had on as guests in honoring Bob, which was a fantastic show, by the way.
Thank you.
I really touched my heart to hear those stories. One of the things that came out certainly was that Bob had this ability. It was like an eye for good athletes, but he had an eye, and I call it more than that. It's an intuition for good people, good hearts.
Yeah.
He almost everyone he's worked with had a good heart, had a good soul, you might say.
Sure. Sure.
They were more than just the body, more than just the mind, more than just an ego. There was something more about, and I'm blessed and honored that I was one of them in terms of that aspect of it and his ability to do that. Yeah.
When did Bob actually first spot you and say, hey, you got talent, kid, let's work together?
That's pretty much how he would approach people.
Yeah.
It was, it's interesting because I just have a vague memory of this, and I know, and it's almost a vague memory pieced together by what I now know happened during that time. It was like I hardly vaguely remember it actually happening, but now it's like become pieced together as a result of pictures and my discussions with John Defendez and some of the other guys. The first time I met Bob was in 1976 or 77, I think it was, in West Orange, New Jersey, YMCA, where they held several sort of regional big contests there. And this particular contest was the Suburban.
Right.
And if you remember the Suburban, the Colonial America, they all took place at this YMCA.
Okay.
I mean, it was a different world. It was a totally different world. But they took place there. And I remember I took third in that contest. And, John Defendez, my dear friend, loves to tell the story. In fact, we just found out recently that the story he'd been telling for years, that his first contest, 1977 Suburban contest, he goes, there were 4 contestants in it. I placed last.
Yeah.
I didn't even get a trophy, he tells you. It's a story.
Yeah.
I'm humiliated. We came to find out just recently, looking through Bob's photos, that I was third. I'm not jumping a hole in the wall at the time.
That's
so
funny.
I was third. He came in dead last. So we still joke about it today, but he already knew Bob. And I think it might have been an introduction there or something. But Bob definitely approached me with that classic Bob. Hey kid, I think you got some potential.
Yeah.
And then it was wherever it went from there in terms of let's connect. Where do you work out? Where do you train? And I think I told him it was Future Man. He was more than familiar with Future Man and Tony and some of the other guys training there. And so that was the first time I met Bob. And it was wow, what a godsend that was. That was like sent from heaven. I got to be honest with you, man.
Right. Did that change you? I mean, because when I met you later, much later, obviously, you were already a pro. You were like Mr. Nice, like you're the nice guy. You're like, oh, that's Tommy. What a great guy. Like I didn't know you as the bad guy, the outlaw, you were like Mr. like clean cut. You didn't have long hair anymore. You were like a good guy. Like when did that transformation take place in you? You know.
Well, it's interesting. I think at some point we give ourselves permission to be who we really are, and early on for me, you know, I was hiding in many respects behind that leather vest, behind that cutoff vest, behind the savage skulls, behind that attitude.
Yeah.
But there were foreshadowings of it early on, because ultimately, you know, even though I was that bad guy, and I'd even talk about actually later on after I got that first Harley Davidson riding for 5 years with some real crazy outlaws, you know. But even during that time early on, you know, my brother and I were known as the bully killers. We weren't the bullies. We were the bully killers. So we had plenty of reason to fight, plenty of reason to defend others, because when you're in a special ed class, lots of people to defend.
Oh,
hey,
sure, yeah.
I pick on them. You don't get to pick on them.
Yeah, yeah.
They're not in my tribe. They're in my freaking tribe. You know what I mean? And if I catch, oh man, we love catching people.
Did you guys have a lot of fights? I mean, were you legitimately fighting? I mean, for real?
Oh, for real. Almost constantly. I mean, from the time we were in the 4th grade putting that special ed class, we were always fighting.
Your poor parents, holy shit.
Yeah, some of our best friends came from those fights.
Yeah.
They demanded respect. They were tough guys. And then, you know, everyone had to put the feelers out, you know what I mean? So we'd wind up brawling and stuff, and they would become best friends, and they'd become part of the Savage Skulls.
Yeah.
So it was a group of these tough, crazy guys in the Savage Skulls.
The irony is that your brother's still involved in the whole biker, you know, world. I mean, he's one of the top, you know, bike painters, custom bike painters in the world, right? I mean, at this point.
Yeah, he is actually. He's been doing this for some time.
Unbelievable, his stuff. I've seen.
And I won't go too deep into the story, but we had a run-in with the Hells Angels several years prior to that, and it didn't end all that well. I mean, you can imagine it didn't end all that well for us, not them. But later on, my brother, you know, he's such a fantastic artist. In fact, you can't see them really well, but the 2 pieces I have back here, he did both of those in airbrush. They're gorgeous.
Wow.
And so he became one of the top airbrush painters, motorcycle painters in the world. He'd been featured in all the top magazines, the covers. Yeah. He won the Rat's Hole. He won all the big bike shows, you know. And it was later on that he was painting someone's bike who happened to be one of the Angels. And the guy says, you know, he goes, I couldn't quite remember. Now I put it in. Now I know exactly where we met before. And it was that incident at the New York Coliseum several years before. But thank God, you know, it was like, hey, there's no vengeance here.
What happened? You guys got beat up?
No, actually, we avoided that. I won't get into the whole story, but we avoided it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you know who Chucky Zito is. You know who Chucky is?
Yeah, I know Chuck very well. Yeah, I've interviewed him many times.
Chucky was I was nose to nose with Chucky. Mm-hmm. You know, he had 5 or 6 Hells Angels behind him.
Oh, really? Chuck's a tough guy. Yeah, you don't want to be.
Chucky didn't need anybody behind him.
Yeah, no.
The fact that he had a couple of people behind him was like, it was enough deterrent for me. Because at the time, you know, I was a brawler, I was a fighter. You know, my brother Mike and I had studied kung fu for, you know, well over 8 years, and we were street fighters as well.
Right.
So we didn't care. I mean, you know, I was, hey, bring it on, whoever you are, I don't care, bring it on. But out of respect for that club, he was the president at the time. Mm-hmm. Maybe I shouldn't even be talking about this. Well, I would get my ass kicked now.
Nah, I doubt it. Yeah.
But we managed to avoid it. But it wasn't all that pretty. So later on, Mike, you know, ran into someone, wound up painting his bike, and mended the fence, you might say.
Were you guys big at the time? Were you guys muscular? Were you guys working out at that point?
I would say we were quite a bit skinnier. You know, we were, again, neither Mike and I have big frames at all.
Yeah.
We're not necessarily big guys, you know. I mean, my top weight as a bodybuilder, as a pro, was about 215, and that was a struggle, man. Getting to 215 was like a battle for me, you know. And my normal weight, if I didn't lift now and eat the way I still do at this age, I would probably somewhere near about 160 pounds. I mean, so we weren't real big. Yeah. But we were more, you know, more akin to a Bruce Lee type fighter.
Gotcha.
You know,
gotcha.
We had a lot of skill and not a lot of brawn.
Yeah, but you know what? I remember when I would see you at the gym when you opened that Maximum gym, and I would come in there later. You know, not initially when you opened it because I was away at school, but when I got back and I would come in there for an occasional workout, like on the holidays.
I remember. You used to come down there with, was it Dave Palumbo?
With Jimmy Palumbo, I was there with Troy Moore. Jimmy. You know, Troy actually introduced us, I think, initially.
Mm-hmm.
And you were very nice to me. Even the first time I met you, and I was like, because I knew you were a pro. And the funny thing was, you didn't look in clothes. You look like you worked out, but you didn't look like a huge guy. And then I would see you on stage. I'd be like, that can't be the same guy. You had such a deceptive physique, that. Yeah. I guess your gift was that you had presentation, your conditioning, your whole look, that you presented on stage. And I have to assume that that's something that Bob helped you with a lot, right?
No question about it. He was really good at that, and he emphasized that presentation. He would emphasize that you're a human sculpture. Present yourself as such, move in such a way. And of course, my kung fu background helped with the presentation stuff.
Right.
But it was really Bob really helped. I mean, he would spend. And you've heard other people tell this story. He would have you stand in front of that narrow little mirror. By the way, the mirror in Bob Gruskin's basement was like some mirror you'd buy in Walmart and put on the back of your door.
$10, yeah, not even.
It was like nothing.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons I loved it is because you looked huge in it.
Yeah.
How could you not look
Bob knew the mindset of the bodybuilder. Yeah.
He really, more than anything else, he knew the mindset, and he wanted to increase your confidence in any way he could, and sometimes that meant breaking you down.
Yeah.
I remember him convincing me to go to I was a teenager at the time, and I went to Teenage Metropolitan, and Suburban, a bunch of other stuff. And I remember I wasn't quite ready, and I knew it. But Bob talked me into going to this contest in Connecticut. He said, "Oh yeah, you'll do well. You'll do. It won't be that. The competition won't be that tough there." And I get there, and like John's first contest. But this wasn't my first. This was my humbling contest. I didn't even place. I was like dead last. A guy named Pete Leonetti, who had just won, was about to win the Teenage America,
right?
Who looked extraordinary.
Yeah,
was in the contest, and as were several others as well. And I just got my butt kicked. But Bob knew this is what I needed. He said, if you don't learn how to lose, you can't be a winner.
Right.
You can't have that mindset, and if you can't lose and come back from it, then you'll never be a champion.
Right.
And he knew how to provide those lessons, and one of the lessons was having you stand in front of that mirror.
Sure.
And sometimes for hours at a time.
Yeah.
Just pose it, pull the leg in, tighten that up, bring the knee up a little bit higher, turn your ankle out.
Right.
I mean, the nuances of bringing out this striation or that striation, and believe me, we were teenagers. There weren't that many striations to begin with. You know what I mean? It was like, you look okay, kid. But he knew how to bring it out. I mean, my rear double bicep, lat spread never changed from the time I was a teenager to the time I was competing as a pro, because Bob helped me get it right out of the gate. Right out of the gate.
And you're one of the, not many guys could say they won a pro show and they went to the Olympia. You did both. And, what was that like back then? I mean, because, you were competing during an era where there was, some really good bodybuilders competing.
Oh, man. It was, you included, by the way, man.
Well, I wasn't at the pro level. I was a big guy, but I wasn't at the pro level.
I don't want to blow smoke up your skirt, but what you transformed into from the time we met at that gym, at Maximum Gym, was extraordinary. Absolutely. I mean, it's just one of the biggest, thickest, rippedest guys ever. And I know the story about what Bob told you in that video.
Oh, you know that story. He told me to go back to medical school.
I got to thinking about that a little bit, Dave. And it's just like, he was so smart and so brilliant. Yeah. And it wasn't, I believe it wasn't even as much that, I don't see the potential in you. Go back to medical school. Yeah. He knew, even if you had all the potential, even if you were fucking Lee Haney, excuse my expression, go back to medical school. Go back to, because if you've already started that process, if you're already in there, if you're already educating yourself at that level, at that degree, then he knew. It's like, this is where you belong. This is what you should be doing. You've got some potential, but go back to medical school. So I know it must have been frustrating for you to hear that, he didn't encourage you to just pursue something in that respect, but maybe it was for the better,
Yeah. You know what? I think he might have said it because he said it, but then he said, to me, prove me wrong. So that was like the challenge he laid down, which, that was like, okay. It was like almost like your parents saying that to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want to prove to your parent, I have to prove to him that I'm really as good as I think I could be, And so I actually went to see him, and I had just gotten gyno surgery, and I had just gotten my shoulder scope, one of my shoulder scopes. I really wasn't at my best, but But Bob could see. Bob didn't have to see it your best to know if you had potential or not.
True. True.
But and you could say this. Look, you weren't the genetically best guy on stage either, but you had the mindset. Bodybuilding is such a mindset sport that if you have like a tenacious, like I will never quit attitude, you can go a lot further than you think you can go. And you probably can go a lot further than some guys that have better genetics than you, because it is such I have to do the same thing every single day,
right?
Never deviate. And it takes a certain personality to be able to do that, because you and I have met guys that are genetic freaks. I mean, look at Matt Mendenhall. He should have been Mr. Olympia, but the guy...
Matt's a perfect example.
Right? I mean, but the guy never turned pro. I mean, the guy should have been the best, the greatest of all time. But maybe he just didn't have the mindset. I don't know. I don't know what his mindset was, So
yeah.
All I know is if I had his physique, I would have gone all the way,
Oh, absolutely. No question about it. The amount of muscle and separation and how hard and lean and dry you used to get. If you had Matt's genetics, his physique, those muscle bellies, lines, and shape, forget about it. You would have been the greatest bodybuilder of all time. There's no question about it.
Well, thank you. What was your greatest memory as a bodybuilder, like the greatest achievement that you got, where you say, what, this really cemented in my head that I'll never forget that?
Well, honestly, it's like I'd love to say it was something regarding the pros, and it was to a degree, because I do remember, and there's something that's more powerful than this, but just as a brief share, I'll never forget my first time getting to the Olympia. And, getting to the Olympia was like, oh my God, it's the freaking Olympia.
Yeah.
It's like, holy crap. I literally felt like, now I believed I was worthy of being there. I felt prepared to be there.
Right.
And I've paid my dues to be here. But I felt like that 15-year-old kid walking in to Future Man Gym and seeing Steve Mahalik for the first time. I was looking around like, oh my God, look at this guy. There's like, holy crap, this is Olympia. I mean, I felt like a kid. In a good way, in a giddy way, like, oh my God, look what you've accomplished. Let's not take this for granted. Let's not worry about the outcome at the moment.
Right.
You've done everything you can to prepare. You're either ready or you're not. You're going to place or you're not. Perform as you prepared to do and enjoy it. And man, I had so much fun being on that stage for the first time, even for the second time, was an extraordinary experience. So that was something I'll always and I'm glad. And this is something I would encourage every athlete, every individual to do, which is solidify and integrate into your body, into your physiology, into the cells of your body and your mind, the positive experiences that you help create for yourself in life. And getting to that Olympia, what it did for me in terms of that, in terms of embodying it, grounding it into who I am, it's like I don't have to, all I have to do is have a brief memory and experience, a thought around it.
Yeah.
But everything else that I look to achieve, everything else that I look to accomplish, writing a new book, speaking in front of an audience of 10,000, it doesn't matter. It's like, I've been there, it's grounded, it's part of who I am.
Right.
And so if you take those experiences, and this is a shame that so many athletes, go on stage and maybe they don't place as well as they wanted to, or maybe they didn't place at all, but you made it there, you got there. Solidify that as an accomplishment, not as a disappointment, not as a frustration, not as a failure, because that's what's going to feed your ability to either succeed or fail in the future. So for me, being on that Olympia stage, I literally embodied it. And it's something that has fed my ability to achieve so much more above and beyond that as we go forward. So I would encourage everyone, no matter what happens to you on stage, no matter where you are, if you've gotten there and you put the work in, the effort in, embody that, anchor that into your body, into your soul, into the cells of your body, and use it later on to fuel and to feed your ability to do so much more. So that was certainly one, and that's my lesson from it.
Right.
But honestly, Dave, the amateur levels was such an extraordinary experience for me, man. I gotta be honest with you. Training for the national championship, for the Mr. America, and it was, ultimately changed to the national championship.
Right.
I mean, as a kid, anybody who lifted weights who wanted to be a bodybuilder, Mr. America was like the title. You know what I mean? I was like, I want to be Mr. America. I want to be Mr. America. And that's what I wanted to be. When I heard Steve Mahalik, when I saw him there and I heard he was Mr. America, I'm like, that's it. That's what I want to do.
Right.
And so competing for that competition, and it took me 3 years to win. The first year, I was a surprising third in the light heavyweight division, which almost cost me my life. I mean, I did everything.
Who won that year? Was that Stridham? Who won that? Yeah.
What's that? No, that was Stridham was the year I took the light heavyweight division, was 86.
Oh, okay.
So that would have been, I'm trying to remember who was that won the light heavyweights. Was it Rich Gaspari? No. I can't remember. It'll come to me. But I'm trying to remember. Mike Christian was in that competition. Okay. I'm trying to remember who won I remember who won. No, I don't. I don't remember who won the light heavyweight, my division in there. But there were some names. There were some guys in there. Rich Gaspari was in that. He was in the heavyweight division at that time. Mike Christian. Several others who were just notables today. Were really great bodybuilders. And so that was my first experience taking third, which was extraordinarily encouraging, to get to the nationals. Because, again, I remember walking in and seeing all these guys and be like, oh, my God. They look amazing. And I remember my girlfriend at the time, who was sitting in the audience after the prejudging, you always go out and say, what do you think? You never want to hear the truth, but
no.
You always say, what do you think? What do you think? And the first thing she said, shook her head. She's like, holy crap, everybody's got legs. Well, there goes my advantage. But, man, they were all so good. The second year, I took second. The third year, I was able to win, and that took a lot of momentum. But those 3 years, climbing that ladder and the variety of different training partners and coaches and mentors I had along the way, and the obstacles and the challenges and even the mindsets that I had to overcome along the way is what really prepared me for the rest of my life, not just for entering the Olympia, but really prepared me for the rest of my life. Had I won it that first year, maybe it wouldn't have had the same impact on my
by the
life.
way, Gaspari did win the light heavyweight class that year, and Mike Christian won the overall. So
there you go.
You were right.
Yep. So, man, those guys were good. I was up against some.
You were competing with the best of the best. These were guys that went on to to play second, and third, fourth at the Olympia. It's amazing. When you think about it.
I know. And they really, really made. I wish I had that track record following my victory at the national championship. Those
Tom,
guys. Lee Labrada went on to win his first pro show, Night of the Champions.
Yeah. When you won your pro card, and be honest with me, don't lie.
Mm-hmm.
Did you, in your mind, believe that you were going to win the Olympia one day? Because I know we all think that.
No,
you didn't. So you never had any delusions about that.
Here's a discussion my wife and I have had on several occasions. And this is really interesting. Again, this goes to the mindset thing, right? Mm. So my mindset getting into bodybuilding more seriously. Win the America. That was like the pinnacle to me. I never really thought about the Olympia, honestly. I never really did. It was just like, it was like in the back of the mind.
Right.
It was win the America. I didn't really think about being a pro. It wasn't really on my radar for the most part. So then after the winning the America, did I fall back on my laurels? Did I not train hard? Oh, I trained as hard or harder than anybody after that. But it was a different mindset. It was something, it was like I was programmed for this and not this. It was like I was programmed here and not beyond it. And I think for those, and this is a great lesson for all of us, think big, man.
So did you think when you bought the gym and you were running the gym over there, in Merrick, Belmore, did you say to yourself, I'm going to be a gym owner, or did you have grander, visions of yourself, and what were they at that time?
Well, I wanted to be a gym owner. I just loved it. I loved the gym. I loved the way it all felt. Mm-hmm. I loved the ability to help people. I mean, that was it's always been, and again, that probably goes back to that bully killer mindset. Mm-hmm. I didn't pick on those other kids. I helped those other kids. I supported them. I recognized even then that there's people in life, even if we're in the same environment, under the same circumstances, there are people in life that have much greater challenges and obstacles than I have.
Yeah.
And if I have any way of helping support them and helping encourage them in some way, shape, or form, even in 4th, 5th, 6th grade when I was having my own struggles, it was something that was just, and again, maybe this is something that was instilled upon me by my parents, by my belief in Christ. All these different components may have come together for that. So it was a natural inclination for me to want to open a gym. And again, this is so interesting because as an entrepreneur, opening a business, starting a business, just simply so you could support, help, and encourage other people is a bad idea.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You better go in with the idea of making a lot of money, and then you can support and help people along the way. You know, so I had it was almost like training for the nationals and then expecting to win the Olympia. It was like opening a gym to help others and expecting to become a millionaire as a result of it. It wasn't going to happen. The mindsets were too different. They were too far apart from each other, you know? So no, I didn't have any grandiose ideas about being, you know, a broadcaster, a television guy, or anything like that. In fact, we can get into that a little bit too, but no, I just wanted to help people. I wanted to have a great gym. I wanted to create a great environment for myself. In fact, that's one of my motivations for opening the gyms was I need a really freaking killer workout. I'm now a pro because we opened it after I won the nationals.
Right. So you opened it for yourself, basically.
A spectacular gym. What's ironic about that is I wound up training at Bev Francis's Gold's Gym anyway.
Oh, you didn't even train at your own gym? That's funny.
No. Too many distractions, man.
Yeah, no, I know, exactly. But you know what the funny thing is? Did you guys, I mean, I know when you first opened, it was pretty successful, right? Did you guys make money over there, right?
Well, we made money. Yeah, actually, we opened the second one. We had the one in Limbrook.
The one in Limbrook, yeah.
And that was a little more blue collar. That was a little more hardcore. We loved it. All the equipment was black and chrome. It had no frills, but it was a really cool place.
Right.
And then my partner Jed and I, who I still love that guy to this day. He was a personal training client of mine at that time, and he said, "Hey, let's do this thing." And I said, "I'd love to." And then we built Belmar. We bought an old scuba diving school.
Yeah.
The amount of work, Dave, that went into it had a huge built-in pool in there.
It still looks like it has a built-in pool, man.
It was ridiculous. We had it was just the amount of the whole back of the building. It was like an entire. We could have just torn the building down and started from scratch. It would have been cheaper.
Totally. It was nice though with the final product. It wasn't a big gym, but people loved that gym. It was very popular.
Yeah, it was about 10,000 square feet. It wasn't huge, but man, they did love it, and it had a great atmosphere. Yeah. It was one of those places where it was like a community, and all the bodybuilders were either training there, coming and going. I would have guys come in. I had Shawn Rhoden guest pose. I'd do a seminar. I had Matt Mendenhall do a seminar.
Oh wow, I didn't even know that.
Several others. You know, we kind of really cultivated a culture there that I think was pretty powerful. It was tough to leave it, man. Yeah. It was really tough.
How did you like, I mean, for people who might not know you, but I'm sure this is the guys our age will know this. You know, bodybuilding used to be on TV, you know, and they had a show called Muscle Sport USA. It was on the MSG network, and Steve Stone, may he rest in peace, and you were the commentators, and you would cover the local shows in the New York tri-state area. They would do like wrap-ups of the shows, and you guys would, you know, comment on, you know, the posing routines. And I know you filmed it all after the shows were over, but how did you get that gig?
Well, it was interesting because I was doing a lot of stuff in Manhattan. I had gotten a job in Manhattan, and I wound up training at a couple of different places out there. One of them was certainly Better Bodies. Do you remember Better Bodies?
Brian Moss's place, yeah, sure.
Gladys Portuguese, and so I was training there, a couple other gyms as well, and one opportunity led to another. And after I placed high in the national championship, and that's another thing that those 2 years did for me. Those 3 years after, you know, missing the gold at the nationals, it gave me other opportunities. It was like, okay, now I've made my mark. Now I've got a foothold in the door. I've got some notoriety, and I used that in many respects.
Sure.
So at Better Bodies, we started doing a lot of stuff. We started doing some shows at nightclubs. It was me and Gladys Portuguese. Mike Christian would join us once in a while. Mr. Universe, John Torelli.
Right.
There were Carla Dunlap, who was a Miss Olympia herself. So we had this really cool group of really good bodybuilders.
Right.
And we created, and Brian Moss helped put this together. It was called Muscle Opera. And so we were traveling around putting on these shows at all these nightclubs, the hottest nightclubs in Manhattan. And so I connected with somebody that was filming there at the time, a guy named Paul Goldberg and Paul Allen. They were partners.
Yeah.
And they ultimately partnered with another gentleman named Steve Carroll.
Yeah.
If you remember Steve Carroll.
Yeah, one of my favorite guys, yeah.
Yeah, no, everybody loves Steve Carroll, man. You're fired. He was the original, you're fired.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I love the guy. He had a good heart, you know, he really did. But so they conjured up this idea of doing a possible TV show about bodybuilding and that whole genre. And I had done a couple of things with Paul Allen, Paul Goldberg, where I was doing commentary at some of these events that we were doing. So not only was I performing with the Better Bodies group, the Muscle Opera group, but I was also doing some commentary with them. You know what I mean? Because they were videotaping this stuff.
Sure.
And another small video company called Video Action or Muscle Action, I think it was called.
Yep, I remember
that. And so I was doing some commentary for them as well. And so that all came from that. And then when Paul Goldberg and Paul Allen and Steve got together, and they said, who can we bring in? Who's local? Who can put 3 words together?
Sure.
Who's got some kind of like credibility? And so I guess for them, the natural choice was Tom Terwilliger. Mm-hmm. But I will tell you this. The first time I got in front of that mic and they put me in front of Jim Mannion, I had to interview Jim Mannion.
Yeah.
I've never sweat so hard.
Because you knew if you said the wrong thing to him, you were going to be in big trouble afterwards. Yeah.
Oh, it was so bad. And plus, it was like we were on stage during intermission, so there wasn't much time. It was like this small gap, this little window in intermission. But the audience is out there, and they're already piling back in. Sure. And I'm like, I had no clue what to ask the guy, how to talk. I wasn't listening to anything he said, so I couldn't comment back. I was stiff as nails, man. And So I got better and better and better, and ultimately became a partner with those guys in producing the show, getting it together, and then we decided, hey, I need a partner. I can't. It's
hard to do alone. Yeah,
I got to have a partner, and that's when we brought Steve in. Yep.
Steve Stone. Yeah, that was you guys did that for how many years did you do that? About 10 years?
16.
Wow, I didn't realize it went that long. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was interesting because it was 10 years while I was living in New York.
Yeah.
And then when I decided to move out to Colorado, sell the gyms and move to Colorado,
you still do
it. That was it. That was the end of it. I had to move. I approached them and I said, "Listen, guys, this is it. I'm going to take off." And I said, I can help you. I'll stay on as long as we need, but we can find somebody else. And they said, "Wait. What do we fly back and forth? What do we go back and forth from Denver to New York and into the other events and stuff like that?" I said, "Okay, let's go for it." So we did that for another 6 years or so.
Wow.
That was pretty cool. Huh? No?
I will say, when Steve Carroll and I used to get along, he did tell me, he goes, it was a very expensive show to produce. And, at the time, luckily, the sponsors, whoever sponsored, I don't know, Twin Lab, or whoever the sponsors were, they were putting up big money for that to produce those shows. Because TV, he said, was very, very, it's not like now anyone can do an internet TV show. But to be on real TV, you had to have real advertisers to pay that bill,
Oh, absolutely. And we got picked up, like you said, it was Madison Square Garden Network at first, for the first 5 or so years.
Yeah.
And then we got picked up by Fox Sports Net. And it kind of changed a little bit, though. We had to change the format. We weren't doing the same interviews. This is, by the way, those early years is when I got to know Dr. Bob Goldman. Yeah. He was one of our specialists. What a great guy. What an extraordinarily accomplished doctor.
Sure. I love Bob.
Spokesperson, martial artist. The guy is fantastic. And so we got to know each other real well from that because I was always doing interviews with him. But we stopped that format. Mm-hmm. And we had to go to event-style format. Steve and I had to wear the blue blazers, the tie. We had the whole Fox Sports mics, the whole deal. And we had to, tighten up our shit. We couldn't just be like, all right, because after a while I got loose. You know what I mean? I was no longer a stiff guy anymore. I got loose and maybe a little too loose. Yeah. So when Fox Sports, picked us up, it was just like, okay, we got to pull it back. We got to get serious. Right. Got to shave. I had to shave for every show. I remember one time Paul Goldberg, he filmed. He's like, "You guys ready? We're in front with the mic." He's looking at the camera. And he goes, "You didn't shave." I said, "No, why? You got to freaking shave. You got to be clean cut. You got to clean it up." I was like, "Oh my God, you got to be kidding me!" I went in the back of the truck and shaved my face, man. I couldn't believe it.
That's great. So, when you made the transition away from the stage, and you got into giving speeches and motivational talks, and I've had you on with some of your past books that you've written. Good stuff. I've read your books. I know you have a new one out, but we can talk about that in a second. How did you make that transition? That's going to be scary because here you are. You were making money, but in the bodybuilding world, as a gym owner, as an announcer, whatever, and now you're not in there anymore. That had to be a scary jump for you.
It was. It's like anything else when you take that leap of faith and you don't really know what's beyond. It's standing on that precipice of change. You're standing there, you're shaking. Something's got to change. It's time to move on, time to reinvent, time for something new, whatever it might be, time for a change. but there's this whole big precipice, I mean, out there. I mean, there's this whole big gap between you and what you want.
Yeah.
And so there I was standing on this precipice and thinking, how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? How do I take this leap of faith? And I was contemplating that for a short period of time, for a couple of years, I think. And I think much of it was precipitated by, ultimately competing in the Olympia, having the honor of competing in the Olympia twice, but not making the top 10. And I knew that, hey, you know what? If I'm going to even crack that top 10, I got to take it up a notch. And we know what that requires, right? It requires more than stepping onto that edge, going over the edge. And that going over that edge could cost you your life. We know that there were a few bodybuilders in that era, in that 91, 92, 93 era, that aren't with us today.
Yeah, Momo and Munzer.
Because they were doing what they thought it's going to take. And I didn't want that. So I had to come to the reality that this is, another Olympia might kill me. I don't know. But I still had the idea in mind I was going to compete in another Olympia. And here's how the unconscious mind works. Because I was vacillating on that decision, and I couldn't quite find the strength, the impetus, the power, the faith to make that decision myself, I went out mountain biking with some friends, one of my friends from Europe. And we were riding pretty hard. The gal we were with, my buddy's girlfriend, was the Swiss mountain bike champion, a European kickbox champion. She was a crazy athlete, and kicked my ass going up. On the way down, I'm going to take her. My ego got the best of me.
Yeah.
But to make a long story short, my front wheel got caught in a rut, threw me over the bars, compound fracture of the wrist, both ulnar and radius, dislocated shoulder, a couple of broken ribs. And so I like to look at it this way. Instead of saying, hey, you know what, that's a detriment, that's what I'm angry about, that shouldn't have happened, I should have competed in one more Olympia. No. That was my body directing my unconscious mind, or should say my unconscious mind directing my body to carry out an imperative that I didn't have the guts to do consciously.
Yeah.
And so
I believe that.
And there was no way to come back. That year, it was 91 to 92, Dorian Yates put on like 30 pounds. Right? It was just like, what the?
Right.
Like, I saw him guest pose, I'm like, I can't even, this is like unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'm like, that solidified it for me. I'm like, okay, not only do I have to put the 30 pounds on that I lost as a result of this accident.
Put another 30 pounds on,
Another 30. So I said, so that made the decision for me. So the decision to leave bodybuilding was made for me by my unconscious mind. The decision to move forward in terms of start doing the writing, the speaking, the training, again, was one of those things that sort of happened by happen chance, you might say. I was already doing, when you're bodybuilding, you do a lot of seminars and you do a lot of speaking and stuff like that. So I felt fairly proficient, little did I know how little I knew. But I got asked by a very large personal development company called Peak Potentials to come on as one of their trainers.
Oh, wow.
One of their coaches. And this was a company that rivaled Tony Robbins in terms of the audience size, magnitude, draw, how much they were making. This was a multi-million-dollar company.
Wow.
Led by someone who became a very dear friend, Harv Eker, who wrote The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I had to go through about a year of training for that. And that training, Dave, was like absolutely invaluable. I would have paid close to $100,000 or more just to learn what I learned and to get the experience that I got from that.
Wow.
Oh, it was absolutely invaluable. It was unbelievable. I mean, how to attract people to a room, how to hold the energy in a room. You've got 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, much less 100, 150 people in a room. How do you hold that energy? How do you keep them engaged? How do you keep them learning for 3, 4, 5 days while they're going through their process? Mm-hmm. How do you do that?
What's the secret? What is the secret to that?
What's that?
What is the secret?
The secret, number one, is to understand that people's attention span lasts for about 7 minutes maximum. And that, number one, you've got to do something to change their state.
Yeah.
You don't want to wait as a speaker or a trainer. And we weren't speakers on that stage. We were trainers. We were personal development trainers. You don't want to wait till you start seeing people look at their watch or yawning before you change their state. You time it 4 to 7 minutes. You got to get people up. You got to get them moving. You got to get them to do a high five. You got to get them taking a note. You have to get them doing something that changes their state from listening to being active.
Interesting. Okay.
That was extremely powerful. Just that one lesson alone. And then how to break lessons, teachings, trainings into like compartmentalizing things into, okay, we're going to do a half hour, 40 minutes, creating or laying out the context for an experiential event. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to talk for about 45 minutes. I'm going to get you moving a little bit in between. And then we're going to break into groups. We're going to do an exercise. We're going to do something. We're going to walk on fire. We're going to break glass. We're going to break arrows with our throat. We're going to do something, right? So you always break it up. You set the context, and then you create an experiential event for them.
Interesting.
And you break people up, and then you bring it back. And you do that. You keep doing that. It's a cycle, you might say.
Right.
And you can do that indefinitely for 3 to 4 or 5 days at an event. And it was so being able to do that does require a very high level of skill. And I wouldn't have had that skill.
Right.
I was lucky if I could keep someone's attention for 45 minutes while I was talking about how to lose weight.
It's very exhausting too, because believe me, I teach my training course. It's a 10-hour class for one day, and I'm like wiped out the next. I can't even speak at the end of the day. So
I know.
It takes a lot of your emotional and spiritual energy to transmit that much information over a short period of time to people, and to actually have them follow you. Like you said, my one fear whenever I do seminars is that people are going to fall asleep. So I'm always testing them and quizzing them. I made up my own techniques, but they're pretty much mirroring what you told me just now. That's why I asked you the question. And it's to keep people engaged and keep them alert. I quiz people, to make sure they're on their toes, and I'll give them regular breaks. We'll try different protein samples for my company and stuff like that. So it's you're performing. You're an actor basically.
Absolutely, no question about it. You're an actor, and your objective is to disseminate information, but not just deliver it like a speaker.
Right.
Your objective is to deliver it so that they get it.
Right.
So they get it in body. So some way, shape, or form, they walk out of that room transformed or prepared in some way to transform, not just a little bit motivated.
Right. Which
is all good, but it's not as good as actually having that transformation. So there's a lot of, and again, there's, I would say, at least 20 different ways of changing someone's state in that audience so that they remain engaged the entire time. But you're right. The energy, I mean, as a trainer on stage, even as a participant in the audience, you've got to stay hydrated. You've got to be fueled.
Yeah.
You've got to have the right mindset. You have to have plenty of sleep. You've got to be able to keep your stress levels to a minimum and know when to take those breaks.
Yep.
Because if you don't, you just can't make it. I used to watch Tony Robbins and wonder, because I did years of Tony Robbins work just for my own personal development.
Yeah.
And then I continued to go to Tony's work as a different level of observer. I wasn't there. It was like I've done the work. Not that I'm completely whatever, transformed, but I've done the work. Now I want to see, how is he doing it?
Right, I got you.
What exactly? So it's like a much more acute observation of what is actually happening on that stage. What is Tony doing up there? What are the trainings? What are the strategies? How does he go to the bathroom? I used to think the guy never goes to the bathroom. Well, after I started observing more, instead of like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to break into groups of 3.
Yeah.
How many? 3. Then you're going to break out your pen. You're going to write down this and this and this. Then you're going to share with your partner this, and then we're going to do a share later. Good. Okay, you ready? Groups of 3, go. And the guy would disappear. Where do you think he was
going to the bathroom?
I didn't know he was going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was going. No, I'm with my partners. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So instead, I started to observe what is he doing and how is he doing it, and it changed the whole context for me, and it helped make it much more, okay, this is doable. If he can do it, I can do it.
Let me ask you a question. You wrote a new book. Tell us about this book.
Well, the book it's interesting because I've been writing this book for some time under a different title, and I won't tell you the title because my publisher would be pissed if I did.
Yeah.
But it's slated for publishing at the end of this year. So what I wanted to do is I recognize what was happening with people right now, whether bodybuilders or anyone else, doesn't matter. What's happening with people right now in terms of the frustration, the discouragement, the uncertainty, even the fear around this, this disruption we've been experiencing, right? So I wanted to say, you know what? I need to get this out there now, not tomorrow, not a year from now. People need this information right now. So I had this discussion with the publisher. It was a little bit of a battle, but I had to create a condensed version. So within 3 days, I condensed it down, like 250 pages down to about 50 pages or so of just the vital information and a little bit of context around it.
Right.
And so the book is called The 7-Step Comeback Plan.
Cool.
And the 7-Step Comeback. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I said that's great. I think it's great. It's perfect for what's going on right now. You're right. People need it to make a comeback spiritually.
Yes. Spiritually, financially, emotionally, physically, from career-wise. I mean, it's just like, and everyone is experiencing this thing a little bit differently, Some people are hardest hit, financially. Some people are in their bodies. They can't get to the gyms. They can't work out. They can't find any way to there's always ways, but they're having much more great level of challenge.
Right.
But for others, businesses, there are going to be some businesses that will never open again.
Yeah.
You and I both know that some personal trainers are going to have to take waiter jobs at some point. You know what I mean? So everyone's got their own particular challenge around this disruption. So what I wanted to do is, and because I couldn't create something that is so specific to one particular genre, one particular challenge, because it's so broad, I wanted to create something that is a framework, you might say, a strategy for creating, for getting people a little bit unstuck, less uncertain about what they're doing, and into action, you might say.
Gotcha.
So it's a strategy for creating your personal and very specific comeback plan. What's the plan?
Right.
I like to say that uncertainty, fear, and doubt is almost completely eliminated like magic the moment you have a plan and you begin to take action on it. You know this, Dave, from your own experience, and I know from my own experience, the butterflies you feel before going out on stage or even starting a show, right? And it's just like, a little nervous. It's like, there's a lot of uncertainty. Yeah. I don't know how it's going to turn out. There's just some fear, right? Yeah. But the minute you step on that stage, the minute you start to take action on your plan and having a plan, backstage, and the moment you walk on stage, having a plan, knowing what exactly you're going to do, and as soon as you take action on it, the fear, the doubt, the uncertainty is magically eliminated. You don't feel it anymore.
Very true. Very true. When is this book coming out?
So we can do, actually, the book itself, and again, I can't reveal the name of that, won't be out till next year, the end of this year. But this book, I wanted to get it out there as quickly as possible, so we released it just the other day.
Oh, good.
It's now available. But what's cool is I wanted to get it out to people for free. I want people to have this.
It's a free book, huh? That's awesome.
It's a free book, and I think one of the things, Dave, about it, and again, it's interesting. We just talked about this in terms of the live training, getting in front of audiences and groups, is that much of the writing in there is just to set the context. The stuff that changes the mindset, gets us into action, and begins the process of creating that plan are the exercises. Gotcha. I have a lot of exercises in there. They're easy exercises. They require thought. They require a little introspective. They require understanding yourself. But it's those exercises that create the momentum and create a new mindset around what we can do. And I'll almost immediately begin to eliminate the uncertainty. You'll go into from reading this book with a level of uncertainty and doubt about what's going to happen tomorrow. When is this thing going to get rolling again? Right. What about my career? How am I going to make all this money back? How am I going to get back in shape? All these doubts and fears we have. Is my business going to survive? So you start this process, this book, going through those exercises, and those fears, doubts, and uncertainties will begin to diminish because you're going to start to create clarity and focus about what needs to be done. I like to say, hey, are you going to be ready for what's coming next? Or are you going to create what's coming next?
I love it. Where do I get this free book?
Go to thecomebackplan.com. No www, just thecomebackplan.com. You can download it free. And what's really cool, Dave, is we've also got, once you download it, you can register quickly for a webinar. I'm doing a live webinar around this process as well to kind of walk people through it. And then some. There's some bonuses in there as well. But just download the book at thecomebackplan.com. You can register for the webinar if you like. Love to have you join us. But it's free, and we just want to make sure doing what we can to help empower people through this process, man.
That's awesome. Now, now obviously, there must be some kind of a, not that I'm trying to discredit what you're doing, but there's got to be some kind of a marketing aspect to this. Why are you giving this away for free when I know you probably spent a lot of time writing this book? Is it because the follow-up book that's going to be published later in the year, is that the goal?
Well, certainly that, but again, not the goal. And again, perhaps my mindset is like like training for the national championship versus the Olympia, first thing I want to do is I want to serve. I mean, honestly, God, that is what I want to do. I want to make sure if I get feedback, and one of the things that warms my heart the most, Dave, is especially on Facebook, when I get messages from people that were members of Maximum Health and Fitness back in those days, or met me as a bodybuilder back in those days, and say, hey, you know what, you did this, or you said that, or you encouraged me, or you gave me my leg up, or you gave me my star. It's like, holy crap. So if I could feel that 10 years from now, someone who's read this book gets back to me and say, hey, you know what, your book changed my life. I got off my ass, I got off the couch, I stopped watching Netflix, and I got into action. That, to me, is the greatest reward. Now, from a marketing perspective, here's how we'll talk about the funnel, because if you're in marketing, or if you're in digital marketing or online trading in any way, shape, or form, the objective is, number one, get people something of real value. Give them something of real value. Add a little something. The added something is that webinar. Ultimately, I want as many people as I can in my personal coaching process. Experience the Leap Coaching Mastermind. And so if I can serve in this way, and if someone wants to take it to another level, if they feel like, you know what, I could really use them. I've been on that precipice for too long, unable to take that leap. I know I've got more in me. I know I'm better at this, but I just haven't been able to get off that freaking precipice. Then I need some help. And that I've got for them. I've got that experience to Leap coaching process for them. So ultimately, we're going to give them that opportunity. It's certainly not something we would force on them.
Brilliant. I love it. I love it. I gave information away for 15 years before I actually started charging for anything. And because the internet was in its infancy, I just answered people's emails when they would send them over to me. And I didn't worry about it. I was competing at the time. It didn't matter. And then after I was done competing, I had a bunch of people who were following everything I was doing because I had been giving away free information for so long that I actually developed, unconsciously a coaching program, and I became a coach after that. So I understand where you're coming from. You got to, let people know what you got to offer them and let them get interested in what you are. And if it resonates with them, then they can go further with you. I love the idea.
Absolutely. And I'm a big believer, by the way, anyone watching this, listening, I'm a big believer that if you can serve, provide value, and create the life that you deserve to live at the same time, more power to you. Absolutely. Because ultimately, you'll be able to serve more. The more I create in terms of generating income, generating that lifestyle I want, the more I can serve, and the more congruent I feel and believe myself to be in terms of teaching anyone and everyone else the strategies for success. So you have to do it. If you have something to share, share it. But if you have something that goes beyond that and you can serve others, sell it.
And if you guys fail, you could always become a member of what was the name of the biker gang you guys started when you were kids?
It was really more of a bicycle gang. It was the Savage Skull.
The Savage. You can join the Savage Skull and rekindle that bike club up again. And there's something for everyone out there. Don't think that
everyone on this podcast is welcome. You're a welcome member of our tribe.
That's right. Tommy, thank you so much for taking the time. I know it was a long interview, but you provided a lot of great information. And I think people are going to be very inspired by this. And you know what? In these tough times, we need to inspire people, and we need to give them a way to pull themselves out of that funk. I love that you're giving away this book for free. Hopefully people will take advantage of that. And once again, best of luck in the future.
Hey, I love you, Dave. We've been longtime friends, and I've always admired what you do and what you're doing now in terms of your podcasting and sharing with people and providing, more levels of hope. This is what we ultimately need, hope and guidance and strategy. So thank you so much, and thank you for having me. And hey, thanks everybody for listening and tuning in. I really, truly am grateful. I appreciate you guys.
Amen to that. And for now, I'm Dave Palumbo with Tom Terwilliger for another installment of Live With. We'll see you next time.